Welcome to NEXTGames, The Journey of CyberLogic, Episode 16, Rise of the Zilart Conclusion. Now we've come a long way in our journey thus far, and in this episode, we will be finishing the Rise of the Zilart expansion, and gaining access to our first endgame content. Now in our next video, we will be taking on the Gods of Sky with our sub-80 character and seeing how we do. Before that though, we need to do a considerable amount of running around the world of Vana'diel to finish finding all 8 of the elemental fragments. Now we were given the Dark Fragment at the conclusion of our last video by defeating the Mission 4 battle, so there's only 7 left to go. Now many of these are quite difficult to get to, and some even have battles that need to be beaten in order to obtain the fragment, so let's go through them one by one. Now the first I recommend you do is the Earth Fragment. Now this can be found in Western Altepa Desert and is one of the easier fragments to obtain. Now you want to use the Unity level 125 warp to Western Altepa Desert and immediately walk down into the lower level and follow the path that you see me following here. Keep in mind, you can mount as you see me doing here to speed this part along. Now for all these fragments, you need to make sure to check the log after you click on the headstone, as it will often say that you are too far from the headstone to get the key item, and you can easily mistake it for a message stating that you have collected the fragment. So make sure that you've received the correct message before warping and continuing on with the next part of your journey, which in our case is going to be the Water Fragment. Now the Water Fragment is in Lethane Plateau, but you must go through Ordell's Caves to get to its location. Now to get to Ordell's Caves, you can use the Survival Guide Warp if you already have it, or you can go to F7 in Lethane Plateau to find the entrance. Now once inside, you want to follow the path that I'm showing you here on the maps to get through the caves. Now once you're outside, you have a short hike through the canyon until you arrive at the headstone that you see me at here. Now let's move on to the Ice Fragment, which you need to go to Fei Yin in order to acquire. Now if you already have home point warp number 2 in Fei Yin, simply use that. It's going to put you right outside where you need to be, which is Cloister of Frost. Now if you don't have Fei Yin's home point warp number 2, then I want you to use Unity Warp level 128 to start right there at the entrance of Fei Yin. You then simply need to travel through that first floor till you find the stairs to the basement that I'm marking here on the map for you, and then navigate to the Cloister of Frost once you get into the basement. 2 things to note. 1, you want to make sure that you click on the home point warp number 2 as you pass it just before you enter Cloister of Frost so that you can more easily get back here in the future. Now the second thing you want to watch out for is a notorious monster that's here in the basement right before the Cloister of Frost in this large area, and it goes by the name of Capricious Cassie. Now Cassie has the chance to drop an earring called the Cassie Earring, which you can wear at level 1, but that can boost your hit points by as much as 50 by converting magic points to hit points. It can be useful in some jobs, so it might be useful for you to have this earring and at least, if nothing else, the experience of taking on this challenging NM. After you've finished with this and you've zoned into the Cloister of Frost, go ahead and look right behind the Ice Crystal, and right there you'll see the headstone where we can get our Ice Fragment. We have now come to the 5th fragment, and really the most challenging one to acquire, the Fire Fragment. Note that the remaining 4 fragments will all require you to participate in a battle once you click on the headstone itself, so make sure that your trusts have been summoned and that you are ready for a fight before doing so. Now, so for our journey to get this 5th fragment, we will need to use Sneak and Invisible, and I would recommend bringing 3 ice clusters to speed along your journey. You will want to start by using the G6 entrance to Ifrit's Cauldron from the Yunga Jungle. Now I used here the Survival Book Warp to get to the jungle, but you can also use the level 122 Unity Warp to get here. Now this area has a lot of mobs that have good experience for a current level of 66, so I chose to kill my way through the cauldron with trust and ended up getting to level 79, so 3 levels by the time I got to the far end of the cave, about 30 minutes or so later. So consider doing this, as you will want to be around level 80 before we take on the Gods of Sky. Now once you are in the cauldron, you will want to take this tunnel that you see here labeled with a K to get to the next map. Once there, you will want to follow the path to exit on the tunnel labeled L that you see here. You will now be back outside and want to follow the map all the way around the U until you get to the exit of Path E. Note though that on your way you're going to encounter your first flame spout. These spouts will go down from time to time, allowing you to pass, but it can take a very long time to wait for it to happen. So this is why we brought those ice clusters with us. What you want to do is you want to go ahead and trade one of these clusters to the flame spout, That will allow it to go away and allow you to pass it for a short period of time, and you can continue on your journey. Now before we go any further, I wanted to make sure to note that the bombs in this zone can be actually quite dangerous when you fight them, especially the ones at the very end. They can use self-destruct and it can kill you and your entire party with a single TP move. So make sure you use caution when fighting those. Now after you take the tunnel labeled E, you now want to follow the path until you exit on the tunnel labeled H. We now want to follow this path on the new map until we get to the exit labeled path N. This brings us to our final map. Now here we have to pass by 2 flame spouts and pass by a notorious monster that is very difficult for you to take on at this level, called the Ash Dragon. Now trade the ice clusters to the flame spouts as you encounter them to pass them more quickly, and then when you get to the Ash Dragon, who's right here in the middle of this map, you want to make sure that you keep in mind that he is true sound, which means he will see through your silent oils or sneak during the nighttime. So you want to stay entirely away from him if you do not want to fight him at night, because otherwise he's going to aggro you regardless of what measures you've taken. Now he was sadly not here on this day, so I couldn't get an example of what a level 79 party could achieve when taking him on. Now once you finish following this path, you'll exit the cavern and now need to go under the waterfall at K7 to get access to the headstone. Now make sure you have your trust out before clicking on that headstone, because when doing so, 2 Oppos will spawn, Karthi and Typha. Now the fight shouldn't be too challenging at this level, and after they are dead, click on the headstone once again to finally achieve the fire fragment. We next move on to the lightning fragment, found in Behemoth's Dominion. Use Unity Warp level 135 to get here, and then take a short trip over to G9 where the headstone is. Now once clicked on, 2 weapons will spawn, a legendary weapon and an ancient weapon. Once both are taken out, click on the headstone again for your fragment. Next is the wind fragment, found in Cape Terrigan. Now once again we look to Unity Warp and take the level 128 Unity Warp there, and then we hop on our mount to travel to F7. Now this one will spawn a shadow by the name of Exexarian the Wanderer. Now I used my mount to get to this location, and for some reason my trust glitched and I didn't notice before clicking on the headstone. So you will notice that I actually end up soloing the vast majority of this fight, which made things a little interesting. Now after defeating the shadow, you want to once again click on the headstone for the wind fragment. All that is left now is the light fragment, which we must go to the Sanctuary of Zeta to acquire. Now you probably haven't been to this zone yet, so I recommend using Unity Warp level 122 to get here, and then using your mount to get to the hidden area of this zone that you see here on the map, where you can find the final headstone. Now once clicked on, it will spawn a doomed pilgrim NM that will need to be defeated. Once he's dispatched with, click on that final headstone, and our trek around Vana'diel has finally come to an end. Now before continuing, we need to do a quest so that we can get to our next battlefield. Now this quest is called Open Sesame, and it allows us to get past weighted doors without the use of multiple characters. Now we first buy a soil gem or 12 soil geodes off the auction house, and then use level 125 Unity Warp to Quicksand Caves to reach the Cloister of Tremors, and get both the home point that is just outside this zone and click on the unmarked spot inside of the zone that will reward us with our Tremor Stone. This is the second item we need to complete the quest. So now armed with both these items, the items off the auction house and the Tremor Stone, we need to head to Lockpicks in East Altepa Desert, who is standing right next to the teleport crystal, who will ask you for the Tremor Stone and either a meteorite, soil gem, or 12 geodes. Go ahead and trade one of those 3 items to him along with the Tremor Stone, and Lockpicks will reward you with the Lodestone, which will complete the quest and allow us to get to the battlefield. Now armed with this Lodestone, we now need to head to the secret tunnel right at the intersection of C and D11 in western Altepa Desert that you're seeing right here on your map to get to the entrance to the Quicksand Caves that we need to get to. Now once inside, we head straight through the first door that we see using the Lodestone that we just acquired to unlock it, and then take a left and drop down to get to the Chamber of Oracles. Make sure to get the home point crystal that is just outside the zone to make future travel here much easier. Now once inside, you will click on the platform to enter the battlefield. Now this battle is against 3 Anticans, a Paladin, a Black Mage, and a Ranger. Now it's recommended that you kill in that order of Paladin, Black Mage, Ranger. That's because the use of Eagle Eye Shot from the Ranger is the biggest risk here if it's not blocked by one of your shadows. Now when you start on the Paladin, he's going to end up using his SP ability sometime during the fight. When he does this, go ahead and switch to the Black Mage and take them out, and then by that time that's finished, the Paladin's Invincible should have worn off, allowing you to switch back to him and start inflicting damage to finish him off before finishing with the third and final Antican, the Ranger. After the fight is complete, we are automatically on to the next mission, and we are told to go to Delkfutt's Tower, so we will return there for the next part of our mission. Now there are 3 ways to get to the Stellar Fulcrum battlefield at the top of Delkfutt Tower. Now the easiest is the home point warp to right outside the battlefield, but many will not have this unlocked yet. The next best way is to use your Delkfutt key acquired during earlier missions to get to the 10th floor from the basement, and then you can climb the remaining floors to the 12th floor from there. This is the method I'll be using here, and if you're using this method, don't neglect getting that home point warp right before the Stellar Fulcrum warp point. Now the last option is to of course climb the entire tower from the first floor, but obviously this is the most time-consuming option. Now once you get to the battlefield, prepare for a fight against Kam'lanaut. Now the battle itself can be challenging, and it's one of the reasons we have waited until our level was higher before taking it on. Now if you're tanking this, you want to be on the lookout for the readying of the Light Blade ability, as it can one-shot you at times if not blocked by shadows. So I will normally step out of range if my shadows drop, just to make sure I don't get hit by it while I'm recasting. Now Great Wheel is a hate reset ability, so it's going to be difficult to keep solid hate in this one. So just try and do your best, and most of all, save your hate grabbers for after this ability is used, so that you can hopefully quickly grab hate back. Now after the fight, you will get another cutscene, and will now need to head off to see Gilgamesh in Norg. He speaks of ruins, north of the Sanctuary of Zeta, so that's where we are headed next. Now to easily get to these ruins, you will simply want to use the Unity Warp once again to level 125 Romav to get to the zone. Now from there, you can either kill your way to the northernmost point of the zone for experience, or use Sneak while you navigate this zone. Enter the large door at H5, and then enter the Hall of Gods. Now here we learn that we are sadly stopped from proceeding any further, so we are headed back to Gilgamesh and Norg to get some answers. He informs us of a Mithra who has a crystal that may allow us to progress. We find her in Rabau, near the windmill at G7. She sends us on a quest to Quicksand Caves to retrieve something in exchange for this crystal that will allow us to get past the Hall of Gods. Therefore, it's off to Quicksand Caves we go. Now you will once again need to head for that secret entrance that we used a few missions ago at that intersection of C and D11. This time, you will want to take a right at the first intersection instead of going straight, and you will then drop down and click on the question marks on the ground here to spawn the Ancient Vessel. Now once defeated, click on the spot once defeated to acquire the Papyrus key item. That, once given to Maryou the Mithra in Rabau, will reward us with the Cerulean Crystal. We then take this crystal to the Hall of Gods to be allowed access past and finally into Tulia, otherwise known as Sky. Now upon entering the zone, we get yet another cutscene with Aldo and Zed. We now need to head to each of these 5 islands shown here, and enter where an Archangel awaits to be beaten inside of each of these islands. Now don't forget to grab the home points as you're entering each of them, as those will be useful when killing Sky Gods in our next episode. Now the portals that bring you to these Archangel Islands are shown here and do not require activation. However, the portals that take you in between the large islands require activation at a nearby point, so look for them on your way to the island portal. I'm now going to cover each of the 5 Archangel fights and what to look out for in each of them, while you see some of the fights against these Archangels. Now I'll be releasing videos in the coming days that show all of these battles if you're interested in seeing them in their entirety, as well as a separate video that covers all of the cutscenes that take place during all of these missions that you're seeing during this video, all spliced together kind of in a movie format. So if you would like to see either of those 2 items, be sure to look for those in the coming days. Now we first start with ArkGK, a Samurai and Dragoon. Remember to keep your shadows up in this fight to stop him from skill chaining on you, and additionally ignore his Wyvern, as when I took him out on my attempt, he was just immediately resummoned, making that kind of a waste of time. He also has access to a unique AoE weapon skill, so be sure to try and pull him away from your backline trust to save them from this damage. Next, we come upon ArkEV, a paladin and white mage who can use both Invincible and Benediction. That makes it that this fight takes a while, but it also isn't too risky as long as you keep shadows up to avoid getting hit for high amounts of damage from spirits within. Now ArkEV also has access to Dominion Slash, which is another AoE damage weapon skill, and Shield Strike, which is an annoying ability that will continually stun you throughout this fight. Now the next one we're going to talk about is ArkHM, a warrior and ninja who can use Majin Galkri, which is by far the biggest danger here. Now you want to try and take his hit points down as quickly as you can, as if Majin Galkri is used at a high hit point percentage, it will kill everyone in range. He also uses a weapon skill called Cross Reaver, which is conal and can do large amounts of damage on you and stun you, so make sure you keep those shadows up. Now our fourth angel is ArkMR, a thief and beastmaster. Now she will summon a pet to assist her, which can be either a tiger, which should be left alive, or a mandragora, which should be killed quickly due to the threat of Sleepga. Now, she will use Perfect Dodge and Charm during the run, with Charm being the biggest risk for this fight. You actually want to try and let your trust tank if at all possible, which can be difficult. Now, if she does happen to use Charm on you, it's going to last for several minutes, and you're going to need to finish the fight solo as your trust will have despawned. Also note that ArkMR has access to an AoE weapon skill called Havoc Spiral, which can do strong AoE damage, so keep this in mind. Now, for the fifth and final Archangel, ArkTT, Now we are at the fifth and final Archangel, ArkTT, a Black Mage and Dark Knight. Now TT will teleport around the battlefield, which actually makes recasting shadows and staying alive in this one pretty easy, but do try to help your trust spread out so they aren't all hit with the same AoE spell. Now TT will use Mana Font and Blood Weapon, and a weapon skill called Amon Drive, which is an AoE damage weapon skill. Now since you're not really going to have a lot of control over the positioning of ArkTT during this run, you're just going to have to accept that many of your trusts are going to get hit with this from time to time if he happens to teleport near them. That's going to be it for all of the Archangels. After you've beaten all 5, we can move on to the next part of the Zilart storyline. We must now head back to Norg and speak with Gilgamesh once again, who will send us right back to Sky, but this time our destination is the Celestial Nexus to take on Eald'Narch. Now I recommend using home point number 1, which puts you right next to the I-6 entrance to the Shrine of Ru-Avatu that you will need to enter in order to trigger the next cutscene. Now after it's over, we head to the center part of this map here, where we're going to go down the stairs and we will find the entrance to the Nexus. Now note, there is a home point right before the Nexus, so don't forget to pick that up. Now you can either use Sneak and Invisible to avoid detection, or kill your way to the battlefield for some really good experience in this zone. Now once you arrive in the Nexus, you will be in for a fight against Eald'Narch in 2 separate forms. Now his first form, he continually summons 2 orbitals that assist him, and you will be unable to damage him himself due to a shield that is around him named Exoplate. You need to deplete all of those shields' hit points before entering phase 2, in which we can actually damage Eald'Narch himself. Now continue to take out the orbitals as quickly as they respond, and push fast to get past this initial form as quickly as you can. Now, once you get to his second form, you will find that he is a fast swinging version of his first form that has lost his shield and orbitals, but now gain the ability to inflict large amounts of damage through the form of slow casting ancient magic, so make sure that you keep those shadows up. Now, once defeated, you will now be treated to the final cutscenes of the Zilart storyline. Now we head back to Norg and Neptune's Spire for our final goodbyes and cutscenes, and we have finished the Zilart storyline. Now on the plus side, the story continues after we finish the Chains of Promethea expansion, as there is some epilogue missions that we can do after finishing that expansion. We now have access to our first endgame area and can start taking on some of the content that many players enjoyed 15 years ago. Now I will spend the next episode of the series taking on those gods and seeing how well we do with our level 80 character using Trust. We will then continue our progress on the Chains of Promethea storyline to gain access to our second endgame area, C. Now be sure to check out the battle video and cutscenes video that are soon to be released, going over more of this content, as this really is one of the better expansions out there. Now, if this is your first visit to my channel and you enjoyed the content, please be sure to click on the subscribe button under the video and the bell icon next to it to be notified when my future videos are released. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time. Stay safe and stay healthy out there.